that protecting Palestinian civilians in Gaza is both a moral responsibility and a strategic imperative.
Since I last broadcasted, thousands more of Palestinian children have died. Since my last video where I marked the gruesome milestone of over 2,000 children being killed in just less than a month, the total has now gone to 6,600 Palestinian children who have been killed by Israeli forces in Gaza since the Hamas incursion of October 7th. Thousands more are still missing under the rubble. That means that there are potentially over 10,000 children, not just civilians, not just, women, but children who have been killed by this barbarity that is retribution for October 7th. If we are forced to continuously condemn Hamas for what they did on October 7th, then we should also be forced to condemn what Benjamin Netanyahu continues to do to the children of Palestine with the consent and the assistance of the United States government, who now is starting to realize the severity of what they have done. I want to play a clip for you from Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin as he makes it very clear what we have known since day one. If Israel continues this route, they will create more members of Hamas without any question. Here is Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin.
In this kind of a fight, the center of gravity is the civilian population. And if you drive them into the arms of the enemy, you replace a tactical victory with a strategic defeat. So I have repeatedly made clear to Israel's leaders that protecting Palestinian civilians in Gaza is both a moral responsibility and a strategic imperative.
The problem with this assessment is not that he's not accurate. He's 100% accurate. It is the fact that we knew this before 6,600 children were killed. We know what's happening in Palestine right now is genocide. And no matter how many people try to, dodge that reality, when you look at the city, it has been leveled. All of the culture, all of the history has been erased, in addition to the 6,600 children. Now, I put emphasis on the children because of the lack of humanity that is shown towards the adults in Palestine. It's the same inhumanity that is pointed towards the children. But it is necessary for you and anyone who is still standing on the side of Benjamin Netanyahu's actions to come to grips with what you're asking us to come to grips with. You're asking us to be okay and just co-sign it. And not just co-sign it, but to actively participate in this while we see the number of children being killed. Maybe you have no regard whatsoever for the lives of Palestinian adults. But if you have that same disposition towards the 6,600 children that have died, you need to question your humanity. And if you have the expectation that we are going to just actively, blindly support the party and the power structure, the United States of America, to blindly support that, despite what's going on and despite the fact that the United States was complicit with this all the way, listen, I know I've been gone for a little while, so there's a lot that's been on my heart to say about this, but to have the expectation that people should happily and willingly vote for Joe Biden, despite the fact that this is the reality that we have in front of us right now, 6,600 dead children, and you expect us to not interrogate that notion, to not have some type of qualm, some type of cognitive dissonance that we have to resolve. It's almost as though people expect us to just simply accept this excitedly, to be happy about it, to post videos online like we've seen from so many right-wing Israelis who are celebrating what's happening, mocking the deaths, mocking the poverty that the people of Gaza have suffered. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen the soldiers, the IDF soldiers who are gallivanting around the city, stealing, taking things? Like there's a whole restaurant had their entire stock of eggs that they were using to feed the people who were left, taken by Israeli soldiers. And it's this environment that people expect us to just simply look at it and say, oh, well, vote blue no matter who. Okay. I'm confident that as a political strategist who understands the severity of the upcoming election and the threat that Donald Trump poses, I promise you that that is the precise attitude and disposition that is going to help Donald Trump get elected again. Furthermore, I suggest that that should not even be in our conversation and consideration of concern right now when 6,600 children have been killed. I have to level with you. Part of the reason I took some time off was because there's no way I can discuss this without escalating my rhetoric towards what it exactly needs to be towards this type of genocide. So I said, let me take a day or two off. And that day or two off turned into a month of unbelievable research that I'll share. But I coming back today and I'm looking at the totals this morning and I'm thinking how absurd and how callous and how cruel it is for anyone to focus on anything else. Don't talk to me about the election of 2024. Not in context of, I have to vote for Joe Biden. No. What has to happen is that there has to be accountability for every single life that was taken. 6,600. 1,400 Israelis died on October 7th. I know the number because I'm not going to forget it because I do oppose the actions of Hamas. But if you want me to remember the 1,400 people who were killed on October 7th, you better damn well believe I'm going to remember the 6,600 children who have been killed so far and the thousands that are still under the rubble. That means there are decaying bodies of children right now in Palestine that have not had a proper burial, that are still underneath rubble. And you expect, not you, my listener, them, they, those people who have an expectation that we should not have empathy for that, such that to the extent rather that we don't even calculate it in this upcoming election. Matter of fact, that it's even worse than that. We're not thinking about the next election. We're thinking about these children who are being massacred. And yet we have people who insist that what we must do is to not think about that now, because if we think about that now, that could impact the election of 2024. Well, I'll tell you the truth. As a political consultant and strategist, that is exactly the thinking that will make the Democrats lose forever. And I understand full well the real threat that is coming to this nation. I mean, it's already here. We cannot afford to let a Republican get 2024. But if you keep telling us to not be concerned with the children of Palestine, I am confident that people will not be concerned about what happens to this country.